Good morning, folks. I think we're running just a little bit behind. Thank you for being here. I want to introduce myself to you so that you know who's talking to you, but I also want to get at least an inkling of who's here and who's doing what in terms of Hispanic Latino ministry. I'm originally from San Antonio, Texas. Father born in Laredo, Texas, if any of you know that part of the state. It's South Texas. It's the dusty streets of Laredo, literally, at least back in the old days. So I'm a third generation Mexican-American Tejano, as we like to say in Texas. And I grew up in San Antonio, which to me is Jerusalem. It is my cultural home, and South Texas is Galilee, actually. And so I have a very biblical background. I'm a product of local schools, graduated from St. Mary's University, joined the Peace Corps, where I luckily met my wife, Laverne. She's a New Yorker, also a Peace Corps volunteer. And we served in Venezuela. And that's where they took my Mexican-American Tejano Spanish, put it aside, and gave me good Spanish. And so I was able to learn the kind of the Pan-American way of looking at things, not just from one particular region. So I consider myself now a kind of a generalized Latino, Hispanic, Mexican-American. And that's my background. And that's also my perspective. Some people might say it's my bias, okay? But every one of us has a kind of a filter or a lens through which we see the world. And so mine is very much a South Texas Tejano, and in some cases Chicano, if you have heard that term in the past. But we're going to get into some of those terms. My vocation in the priesthood is late. Been ordained 18 years. I just retired because of age. I reached the magical age of 72, and once you reach that, you guys know, you got to turn the page. And so I had to turn the page. I was a rector of St. John's Episcopal Church in Austin for 15 years, and there is where we started also a Hispanic Spanish language liturgy and congregation. So we became kind of a dual language parish. But I've been in Hispanic ministry for the last 25 years or so. So I've seen the evolution of Hispanic ministry in the Episcopal Church. And now we are in a we're kind of in the cusp of a paradigm shift, if I can be kind of academic in that term. The notion of what Hispanic ministry is changing, and I'm going to get into those dynamics. But I want you to understand at least some of the background that I come from, so that you can kind of put me in perspective. Okay. Ruby Arellano, I can understand that last name.
And you say it well.
Yes. Let me get an idea here of the folks who are here. I won't have you introduce yourself individually because it would take too much time. Oh, we got more folks coming in. We're going to need more chairs, huh? Adelante. Aquí hay una silla, mira. ¿Qué tal? Buenos días. Para ustedes que apenas entraron, que hablan español, bienvenidos. Yo soy el reverendo Alberto Rodríguez. En Austin me dicen el padre Alberto, pero no de Miami. What I'm saying is that they call me Padre Alberto, not to be equated with the Padre Alberto from Miami. Two different characters. Um, and just to repeat, just so everybody's on the same page, I'm a Mexican-American, Mexico-Americano, tercera generación. Nacido en San Antonio, was born in San Antonio, grew up in South Texas, and that is my cultural home. My mother born in Mexico, my father born in Laredo, and I'm a third generation. Anyway, so that's kind of tells you a little bit about myself. I would like to see, let me start with the obvious questions. Of the Hispanos, Latinos who just came into the room, how many are you or associated with a specific congregation? Okay. Hispanos totalmente en español. Okay. Pero todos hablan inglés, ¿verdad? ¿Todos son bilingües? Ah, entonces tengo que traducir. Tienen traductor, okay, perfecto. We got two folks that are totally Spanish speaking, so they're going to have a translator in the back. Okay, so if you hear some chatter, don't worry about it. They're not gossiping. Están traduciendo. Okay. So we've got Latino Hispanics who are actually from a Spanish-speaking congregation. How many of the rest of you have some aspect of Latino Hispanic ministry in your congregation? Okay, good. You actually have a worshiping group?
No.
Uh-huh.
No, we have a community garden.
Community garden, okay?
At the
Okay.
church, and the majority of my gardeners are Hispanic.
Uh-huh. Good. Well, that's a toe in the water. Yeah. What about you all?
I'm the missioner from the bishop's office to the churches in El Centro, Yuma, Raleigh, and Salton Sea. And Salton Sea is almost entirely Hispanic.
Uh-huh.
The other churches have members of the English service who are Hispanic, but in St. Paul and Yuma, they have a 10 o'clock service in English and a 12 o'clock service in Spanish, which is growing very nicely, and they do a lot of cross-border work in Mexico, etc. And I'm trying to get through outreach and hiring another priest who is fluent in Spanish to have other congregations within those churches.
Great. So you are actually charged with promoting and helping and developing Hispanic Latino ministry in.
It just happens I was working on a cell tower contract out there for it, and the bishop said, while you're out there, do something. And,
Very good.
I used to speak Spanish fluently when I was 18 to about 25. And then I worked in Central America, South America, and I would tune myself back up in New York by watching the movies and the TV and the radio stations before I went. But that's a long time ago, so I just ordered the Rosetta Stone, Latin American Spanish, and I hope to get myself back up to speed.
Wonderful. Thank you. Somebody else?
Our church is St. Francis in Palma Valley. There is a community center next door to us that we helped found. There's a clinic there, primarily Hispanic, and we have been reaching out to the Hispanic people who come to the clinic, and we're trying to encourage them to worship with us. So we're really just beginning.
This is beginning. Okay. Somebody, I think.
Small church, we have a couple of Hispanic families. We'd like more.
They worship in English or Spanish?
We have certain hymns and stuff that are Spanish that we're all singing.
Uh-huh.
The rest of it is predominantly English.
English. Okay. Very good. And the rest of you who do not have any direct connection with a congregation or a ministry or a liturgy, yes.
I'm sorry, I came in late.
Uh-huh.
We have I'm from St. John's, India. I'm Helen Ellsworth. We have about half of our parish are Latinos.
Mm-hmm.
And we do all the music except for a couple of regular Episcopal hymns. All music is all in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And we do the readings in Spanish, and we're going to start doing more of that. And we have a new priest, Father Ron Hulbert, who is going to take the format that the presiding bishop used for the convention mass, and he'll be using that for our mass.
Okay.
We had at one time Spanish services and English. It
Mhm.
was before I got there. and then that priest combined them. We lost a lot of Spanish-speaking people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Although Spanish is not taught in the schools in Indio
mm-hmm.
or Coachella, most of the adults in the working age speak English. It's the older people that are the ones who encourage everyone to come to church that want to hear it in Spanish.
Right, right, right. Well, we're going to talk about those dynamics of what I call traditional Latino Hispanic ministry, because I'm making a distinction between the type of Hispanic ministry, Latino Hispanic ministry, that we currently carry out in the Episcopal Church, which is primarily aimed, focused on the first generation or immigrant or immigrant population, which by its nature has to be in Spanish. And this is, you're going to see me talking about shifting, opening our minds, our concept about what Hispanic ministry is. Okay? I was going to have you do a little bit of an exercise just with your partners, but given the time factor, we've missed that opportunity. So I want to just tell you that when people talk about Hispanic ministry, Latino Hispanic ministry, from an Anglo standpoint, what are some of the characteristics that one normally just kind of pops up with? Like kind of knee-jerk response to, if I asked you, what characterizes Latino Hispanic ministry?
Doing the
A worship service in Spanish.
Worship.
Starting a Spanish worship service.
A Spanish language focus,
Yeah.
right? What other phrase or word would characterize Latino Hispanic
If you
ministry?
do the Padre Nuestro in Spanish, you're one step ahead.
Yeah, one step ahead. If you got a little
We
bit of
sing
a
it, and everyone holds hands, and all the Anglos love it.
Great.
Everybody loves it.
wonderful. Anybody else? Yes.
Finding common ground where both congregations can work together on things and learn from each other.
And learn from each other. So it's a two-way street, right? From my experience, when people are asked what characterizes Latino Hispanic ministry, it usually comes out with stereotypical notions to what it is. The facts are that it's Spanish-speaking focused. The facts are that it is aimed primarily at immigrant or first generation. The stereotypical notions is that all the Latinos are poor, all the Latinos are undocumented, all the Latinos are kind of in a survival mode, and that we have to minister to the little ones. Okay, esta es la perspectiva de muchos de los anglos cuando uno les pregunta qué es el ministerio latino-hispano, que no tienen educación, que son pobres, que no saben hablar inglés, que están un poco atrasaditos, okay, la gente agachada, todas esas perspectivas que uno sale. And what I'm trying to do is to break across through that stereotypical thing, but also to look at the entirety of what is the Latino Hispanic community. Okay? Porque la población hispana latina no solamente incluyen los inmigrantes y los de primera generación, los monoculturales, monolingüe, pero también las personas que son nacidas aquí, las múltiples generaciones de segunda, tercera, cuarta generación y más. Okay? Así es que my objective, my task is to help us kind of open up our horizon and see the realities of what is the Latino Hispanic community. Because until we see the entirety of what this community is all about, we will be focusing in on just this little portion. Let me say one thing, and want to make sure that that these remarks are, well, they're being recorded, but that everybody understands them. We need this Spanish-speaking ministry to Latinos Hispanos. Necesitamos el ministerio que se lleva a cabo hacia o con los Latinos Hispanos. It's vitally necessary. We gotta have it because not only is it an opportunity for us to evangelize, but it is also necessary from their standpoint because they're looking for, in many instances, an alternate way of worshiping that they were used to. And let's face it, I would say about 80%, 85% of the Latinos Hispanos have some formation as Roman Catholics. Whether they are practicing Roman Catholics o que son católicos culturales, they're cultural Catholics, like Jews. You have cultural Jews, secular Jews, and practicing Jews. Well, the same thing in the Latino community. You have practicing Catholics and cultural Catholics. And 85% of our Latino Hispanic people who are in the Episcopal Church come from some Roman background, okay, in some category. The other thing that we have to say is that the Episcopal Church has to be absolutely necessary, that it is channeling resources, human, financial, and otherwise, to this ministry because it's a vital ministry. We cannot get away from it. As long as there is a steady migration from south of the border, we're going to have the barrel always at least half full, okay? Because we will constantly have people coming over, whether they're legal, undocumented, or whatever, there's going to be a migration. That's the reality, okay? And we can build up, 3-story fences along the border, and that's not going to help. That's not going to help. The Hispanics are going to get here one way or another. Okay, so this is a reality. Okay, the other reality is that we have a limited number of clergy who can minister directly to the Latino Hispanics because of the language, because of the culture, and because it's a very specialized type of ministry. Hay muy poquitos cleros hispanos latinos que pueden efectivamente pastorar hacia los hispanos o con los hispanos latinos. Por cuestión de idioma, cultura, y muchos cleros no se quieren meter en ese tipo de ministerio, prefieren otro tipo de ministerio porque hay muchos problemas, hay muchos desafíos, hay no conflictos, pero es un ministerio emergente que está todavía desarrollándose. Okay? And so the reality is that the people, the clergy particularly, or lay people who can effectively minister to the Latino Hispanics are limited because of the language factor, the cultural factor. You almost have to be fluent both culturally and language-wise in order to effectively be involved in this ministry. And you can imagine this reduces the number of people who fit that category. And that's why many times we've got lots of missionary field open, but we have few workers. Okay? We don't have a number of workers. Maybe many are called, but they don't have the facility to be able to minister because of the language and the culture. That's another one of the facts. The Hispanics, the clergy, though, in its limited form, is they are meeting the sacramental needs and the liturgical needs and the pastoral needs of our Latino Hispanics who are in the congregations. And it is so, I think the bottom line of what I'm saying, and I don't have to belabor the point, is that Hispanic ministry is here to stay. Latino Hispanic ministry is here to stay. It's necessary. We have to support it because we will have constantly the barrel being full of the immigrant and first generation. Okay? The other thing I think that has to be said is that Hispanic Latinos need this cultural haven that they can find in the congregations that we are establishing. They need a place where it's safe, where they can feel comfortable. They need a place that where their psychological and emotional spirits can be fed and be open to all that our church can provide. And here again, underline the fact that our Hispanic Latino ministry aimed at the first generation and immigrant is absolutely necessary. I've got to make sure that that point is embedded in your mind. Now, having said this, the reality, as I said, of our Hispanic Latino population is that it is complex. It is multivaried. There are a multiplicity of Latino, Hispanic nationalities. We got Colombians, okay? God love them, all right? We got good representatives of Colombians. Mexicanos? Mexicanos, okay? Any other Hispanic nationality that's represented? Okay, good. So we got Mexicans and Cubans represented here in just this group. But you've got a multiplicity of national groups. The major national groups in the Hispanic population are Mexican, which is about 2/3 of the Latino population in the country. Okay, 2/3. And then you've got, next to that is Puerto Ricans. And next to that, I'm sorry? Salvadoreños, yeah, and on down, and we will see some of these percentages in a minute in the PowerPoint. And so the Hispanic Latino person comes with a variety of different backgrounds. And so you might ask, and I was asked this already, which is the preferable term? Now, in the West Coast and on the East Coast, Latino is the usual term. In Texas, it's this, Hispanic, okay? In the Midwest, it varies whether it's Hispanic, Latino. In New York City, it's like the West Coast, and all the kind of the East Coast, it's Latino. I like to say that the usage Latino is preferred by academia, by the media, by the people who are with it. Okay? But Latino can be the name of, or can be the noun, and Hispanic can be the adjective. In other words, a Latino is somebody who comes to your door. The Hispanic population qualifies the population. So that's one way to think about it. I like to say Latino Hispanic with a slash in between, okay? Just so that I'm all inclusive of the Latino Hispanic, okay? But mindful of the fact that in various regions of the country, you do have a preference for one or the other. I use it interchangeably, in fact. In Texas, Hispanic is preferred, you know why? Because it's a euphemism for Mexican. Mexican in Texas, I don't know about here, but Mexican in Texas has it's a loaded term, okay? The Mexican tiene diferente sentido. A veces es un sentido negativo, okay? Pero así es, para evitar the Mexican ponen hispano, okay? Or gringo, yeah, on the other side of the fence, yes. Anyway, so if you hear me say interchangeably, it's because it's all inclusive, okay? Among Latinos, Hispanos, there is not a standard perspective or agreement as to which one to use. So if you're confused, we're confused too. Okay, because, and either one, to some extent, is correct until somebody corrects you. Okay, and so don't feel that you're stepping on toes if you use one or the other, but just realizing that in some regions one is preferred versus the other. All right, let me show you a PowerPoint that is presented by the Reverend Anthony Guillen. Anthony Guillen is the National Officer for Latino Hispanic Ministries in the Episcopal Church. He functions officially out of New York City, but he actually lives in California. He saw the light and came here and came here as soon as he could. He lives up near LA. Anyway, Anthony Guillen is the fellow who is promoting Latino Hispanic ministry. It's a one-man show. And one of the reasons that I'm here is that he lets me do these presentations every so often, so he can be spread out a little bit more. Anthony Guillen has put this presentation together, and I want to quickly go through it. I don't want to dwell too much on it because this PowerPoint can take 2 hours if you really get into it. Okay, but I want you to be exposed to it kind of on a quick basis so that you can at least get kind of the impact of it, because it's quite impactful.
If we give you our email address, would it be possible to get a copy of the PowerPoint?
Yes, I'm going to, there's going to be some form that's going to be passed out, and you can put your email and say, please send this particular PowerPoint, okay? Yeah, there's nothing proprietary of these PowerPoints.
Back to terminology for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
So when is Chicano used?
Chicano is a term that was popularized in the 60s and 70s. It's a very political, loaded term. Chicanos wanted to make a point that they are neither Americans nor Mexicans, but they were Chicanos. It's the third race, so to speak. It was an activist term. It was a kind of left of center term. Chicano tiene una connotación activista, izquierdista, y alguien que dice, ni soy mexicano ni soy gringo, soy entre medio. Okay? The Chicano term has to be careful that you don't call somebody a Chicano, because not everybody is comfortable with that term. Not all Latinos are comfortable. If you called my mother a Chicana or my father a Chicano, I would have wound up on the other end of the room, okay? Because it's not an acceptable term for people of a certain age and above. It's some people self-identify as Chicanos to indicate to you where they're coming from, okay? But it's not a good term to assume that you can use with everybody.
It's very similar to Puerto Riqueño or other words which people use to self-describe themselves perhaps, but are diminutive terms if used by somebody else.
Exactly.
And they feel it's a slur, even though they use it within themselves.
That's right. When I was growing up in junior high school in San Antonio, Chicano was meaning, is he blood? Is he one of us? Okay? And Chicano was a street term. And then the activists and the political types took that as a badge of honor and put it on as a label. Okay? Okay, let me see. The total Hispanic Latino population in the States now is, even that is outdated, is now about 52 million, the latest estimate. Roughly 17 to 18% of the population. And by the year 2050, which is 40 years from now, it's going to be almost 1/3 of the country is going to be Latino Hispanic. This is not to alarm anybody or to say the brown horde is coming, the brown horde is coming. Okay. Okay. But it is a demographic reality. Okay. And folks that have been at the top of the hill sometimes have difficulty with this notion that the power leverage, the power relationship is going the other way. Okay, and that creates fear, that creates anxiety, and that creates resistance. And that's why in many instances when people see this, it's understandable why people culturally begin to round the wagons, circle the wagons. Okay? We're not going to let those guys in. Okay? Well, the fact of the matter is that they're in. Okay? They're cooking at the supply wagon. They're the vaqueros that are doing the cows and the horses and so forth. In other words, this is a reality. Now, this was the Hispanic Latino population in 1980. Roughly, it was about 9 to 10 million at that time. Now, when you look at the maps, look at the dark colors as you progress through the decades, how the color changes. This is 1980. 90, not too much difference there, but look at this. You begin to infill, okay? Midwest, East Coast, and look at this right here. And then, 2010. Okay, and
Eastern Oregon and Washington, Idaho, are those all farming communities? Or just where they happen to be?
they just happen to be, yeah. And there's, of course, farming and ranching and all that attracts Latino Hispanics. Yeah, very much so. And also the meat packing plants and so forth, the poultry plants. Okay, all of that are attractions to many Hispanics who go work. So by the year 2000, we're now dealing with almost 51,000. And so here is a comparison now. 1980 to 2010. Look at the tremendous amount what's going here. Okay? What do you mean there are Latinos in Atlanta, Georgia? Of course they are. Okay, or North Carolina, or whatever. Okay? This is just to summarize. 56% of the population growth from 2000 and 2010 occurred because of the Latino Hispanic growth. That says something. It's a mouthful. 65% Mexican, Puerto Rican, Salvadoran, the lady, you win the prize. Cuban, Dominican, Guatemalan, and Colombian, you made it. Okay, that's kind of the percentage representation. From the year 2010 to 2050, a 40-year period, the Hispanic is going to grow, population is going to grow 167%. Yes, ma'am.
Father, is this first generation?
No,
growth?
this is
This is growth, second generation, third generation.
all of that. Now, we assume that a lot of the Latino Hispanic growth is because of immigration. It used to be, no longer. Now, the greatest growth of the Hispanic Latino population is from the second and third generation. The fertility rate is tremendous, and we'll see these numbers. The fertility rate among Latino Hispanics, we're prolific. Okay, that's where the growth is coming. Homegrown growth is coming from those that are already here. This is a very interesting graph. From year 5 to 34 represents 52% of the Latino Hispanic population. 52%, or half, or between these ages. No wonder the fertility rate is tremendously high. Okay? Now look at the Anglo, middle age to older age, and I consider myself in this category, although age-wise, but you can see the difference, the distinction. There's the Anglos take the prize in terms of the age ranges. Okay, so if you add, you've got about roughly 38% of the Anglo population are in these ranges right here. Okay, so this in itself tells you a lot, because the growth is coming from the early ages to the 34. If you wanted to see what is, quote, the market for Hispanic Latino ministry, this is your market. Okay, if you want to sell the gospel, okay, if you want to proclaim the gospel, this is your most prominent segment of the population that can be targeted. Okay, number one, because they've got kids, they need baptisms, they need confirmations, they need primera comunión, they need quinceañeras, all those sacramental rites that we've got, they need them, and we have the product. Okay, there's no question that if you want to start a Latino Hispanic ministry, all you have to do is to start walking the community and saying, I can baptize. I can do First Communion and so forth. Yes, sir.
With that population percentage, why is the Spanish language so critical in the ministry?
This is what we're going to look at. That as you go into the younger ages, the Spanish is not as critical as English. In other words, the English begins to equal or overcome, surpass the Spanish. So in the kids that are in junior high or in elementary school, there's no language problem. There's no barrier. They understand, and the more you go up on the level of acculturation in the generation, the more English dominant the person becomes. The second generation is the bridge generation. They are the ones that are bridging the immigrant and the more acculturated. Okay, and by the time that you get to the third and fourth generation, Spanish becomes a luxury, not necessarily a necessity. It's something that many people lose. My nieces, for example, even in Laredo, they are beginning to lose their Spanish. And some people say that's unfortunate. Well, that's the way the immigrant socialization process takes place, Unless you're very deliberate in making sure that your kids are taught Spanish. They're going to lose it. They're going to lose it simply because their friends are not Spanish speaking. They might live in a community, a neighborhood that is not Spanish speaking. And so now you're entering into the regular immigrant socialization process where you're loosening the ties and the language particularly. But unlike other immigrants from Europe, the Hispanics retain an umbilical cord that is tied to the culture. Lo que digo es que los hispanos latinos, aunque comparados con otros inmigrantes europeos, el latino hispano siempre tiene el cordón umbilical pegado a la matriz de la cultura. Okay, y eso no se pierde. Okay, and that's why even English dominant Latino Hispanics, even though they might not speak a lick of Spanish, they are to some extent culturally still Latino, and that has to be honored in different ways.
Then you have abuela too, who is the one who, the grandmother,
Uh-huh.
encourages them to go to church.
Yes,
She may not speak any English.
right.
Now, I don't know if that graph shows that some of them have, the older people have gone back to Mexico or Guatemala, or maybe they die younger because they work so hard. But the grandmothers in our parish are very important, and we try to pay a lot of attention.
Right. That they are the, there's more attention and respect to the elders, and especially la abuela, okay? Yes. All right. Here is a kind of this was put together by a marketing firm, kind of to designate a distribution of the Latino Hispanics into their cultural segments. For example, Latino Americana, about 15%. It's Spanish dominant, nearly no English. They're either a recent immigrant or they have been here just a few years. Okay, this is where a large part of our Hispanic ministry is focused on. Okay, because they're Spanish dominant, and you got to have the clergy who can navigate these waters, cultural and linguistic waters, right here. And then you've got the on the other side, the americanizado, okay, el agringado, okay, el agringado, almost the same percentage, English dominant, nearly no Spanish, born in the U.S., third generation. Nueva Latina, English preferred, some Spanish, born in the U.S., they are the second generation. This is the bridge generation right here, okay? Son bilingües biculturales, okay? Hispano, Spanish preferred, some English. These are the people who are climbing up socially, economically, okay, in the community. These folks here, this is where a lot of your leadership comes from, these people that are in that little rung where they're in between their immigrant background and now they're getting a little bit acculturated, okay? But they still speak Spanish at home. They'll speak Spanish in the workplace, in the school or whatever, but they prefer Spanish because that's what God speaks in his house. Okay. And then you got the bicultural, bilingual. They might have come in as an immigrant or as a young adult, and they are, this group here, we have to pay more attention to, because this is where the leadership is coming from. This is also where the clergy formation people are coming from, okay? And so you can go from here to here to here, and then you get into this area over here, okay? So there is a progression, okay? And so when we say that Hispanic ministry is a one-size-fits-all, there's no way, because you've got these different segments, different folks. And not only that, but your acculturation levels and your linguistic levels are going to differ according to the Latino nationality from where you come. Puerto Ricans, just pretty much I can make a statement that Caribbean Latino Hispanics have a stronger umbilical cord to their culture and to the language. Okay? It's still next year in Jerusalem. Okay? The green, the what is it? What do the Irish say? The mystical green isle. Okay? Puerto Ricans Well, notice that Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Dominicans come from islands. Okay? And their ties to the culture are very strong, as are the people from South America. Okay? The Colombians, the Venezuelans, etc. They have a stronger, for some reason or other, they have a stronger tie to the culture than Mexicans or Mexican Americans. Los mexicanos y los mexicoamericanos son un poco más flexibles en cuestión de juntarse y apegarse con la cultura americana, con los anglos. ¿Okay? ¿Por qué? Porque es una situación histórica. Okay? The Mexican and Mexican American history makes the Anglos and the Mexicans almost be coming from the same perspective, even though there's divisions. There is, for example, a Mexican American, and there was I'll show you an NPR study that said Mexican Americans are 3 times as likely as compared to other nationality groups to blend in and to be part of an English or an Anglo environment. Why? Because that's part of the DNA. It's the historical DNA that's involved. Okay, and so if you want to have some Hispanics, acculturated Hispanics in your congregation, look up a Mexican American, because they are the more prone to want to mix in and who feel comfortable blending in. 3 times as large a propensity of blending in and mixing than other Latino nationalities. ¿Están de acuerdo ustedes? Okay. I just got a confirmation. Almost 2/3 of the Hispanic population is born in the United States. We don't think about that. We think that it's the reverse, that 2/3 of the people are foreign born, whereas it's just the reverse. And this is one of those mental barriers that Anglo population has, and in general, that this notion hasn't sunk in. It hasn't penetrated the mindset that the great majority of the Latino Hispanics are U.S. born. And this is even higher. You go to Texas, and it's something like close to 80%. Okay? Que son nacidos aquí y que son de segunda, tercera generación. Okay? Los mentados pochos. Pocho is a derogatory term that Mexicans use for U.S. born Mexican Americans. It's a derogatory term. According to my best research, it means a fruit that is hollow inside. Okay, which is.
But it's also used for Mexican Americans that don't speak Spanish.
That don't speak Spanish. Right.
And most of Spanish-speaking Mexicans see that as an offense, that they don't speak Spanish.
Right.
Even though they look like Mexicans,
right.
They don't speak Spanish.
Your name is Rodriguez, you know, piel, trigueña. And what do you mean you don't speak Spanish? Oh, no comer frijoles. All right. This is the non-Latino Hispanic birth to death ratio, 1-to-1. For every one born, one dies. It's a heck of a notion. Look at this ratio. No wonder there is the growth is coming from the Hispanic Latino population. For every 1 death, Hispanic Latino, you got 8 being born. 1-to-1. On the Anglo, non-Hispanic?
Oh, Anglo.
Yes. The non-Hispanic?
Oh, I see, I'm sorry.
This is the Anglo non-Hispanic is a 1-to-1 ratio. Okay?
Losing ground.
I'm sorry?
And losing ground.
And losing ground. Exactly. You might not have seen this, this vision for reaching Latino Hispanics. It was put out by the National Church. This is the link to it. I'm going to have this at the very tail end. It's going to have this link again. Okay? But if you want to see what is the strategy planning or plan for Latino ministry, look up this. And even this one is getting dated, 2009, because things are changing rapidly. Okay, you'll have another chance to look at that. Now, Anthony Guillen picked up this term, New Generation Latinos, from the marketing world. This is what the marketing world is now referring to, that 14 to 34 range, the new generation Latinos. Both U.S. born and also foreign born. It doesn't make a difference. It's the new generation, as we will see, because now they are getting acculturated fast. They are the ones who are using social media the most. They are quickly, they skip the desk computer that went directly into cell phones, smartphones. Okay. New generation Latino is somebody of Latino heritage who was born in the States or has lived here for 15 more years and has a bilingual and bicultural lifestyle. Again, this is the, if you want to look at it from a marketing standpoint, this is your market right here. Okay. Because of the fertility rate, because of the acculturated rate, and because they can drive on both sides of the street, English and Spanish. Okay, we who are bilingual, bicultural, we're bifurcated. Okay, even though we have a bifurcation of culture, it blends in. We can switch from one to the other in a snap of a finger. Okay, and so this is the people also who can bridge between the Anglo congregation and the Spanish-speaking congregation. Okay, those that are in between. Remember the just going to test your Sunday school knowledge a little bit. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the great patriarchs of Israel. Abraham was an undocumented alien in a foreign land. Okay, that God selected. He was not a Jew. He was from up in where now is Iran, okay, or Iraq. He was from that neck of the woods. Yes, Thank you. He was a non-Jew who God selected to build the Hebrew Israeli people. To him was born Isaac, second generation. Okay, second generation. And then from Isaac was born Jacob, third generation. Okay, Isaac is that middle culture, in between culture that can understand the immigrant experience and they can understand the more acculturated experience. Okay, and so what basically what we have is Latinos who are Isaacs, and we have Latinos who are Jacobs, and beyond. Okay. Remember that Moses, even though he was culturally Jew, he was not raised as a Jew. He was raised as an Egyptian. He was multicultural, multilingual. Okay, so we have loads of biblical comparisons that we can hark back to understand the current situation of the Latino. As you will see in a few moments, the Latinos in many ways are the Hellenized Jews of our current times. Hellenized Jews in Paul's time were those Jews that no longer spoke Aramaic, that were losing their Jewishness, that no longer followed the Jewish purity laws or whatever. They were, in effect, acculturated Gentiles. That's what the Hellenized Jews were. They spoke Greek. They acted like Greeks. And so what you've got is a comparison to today's Latinos. We are Hellenized Latinos because we are no longer speaking the Spanish. We're no longer tied to the many of the traditions, but we're still culturally still tied and identified. This series of slides is only showing you, telling you, and I'm going to quickly go by them. It's telling you that young Latino Hispanics are wired. Yeah, they're wired. Yeah, they're wired. They're wired to the internet. They're wired to their smartphones. They tweet. They Facebook. They do all the popular and trendy type of social media. And that's where they not only communicate with each other, but this is the way that you can communicate with them. If you want to enter into the world of the young Latino, you've got to be social media savvy. Okay?
But there's many reasons to that. Because a lot of people that live in their own country, they don't have access to a phone, maybe. They can access the internet and be with them. And with all the family they've lost or maybe left
Yes.
behind.
Yes, it is virtually their community, their virtual community, their digital community that they have built. I like this one. 32% of Hispanics access the internet through the smartphones compared with only 20% of the general market. Okay. Yes, sir.
I think that'll tie in also to the fact that not as many of them have home computers.
Do have, you say? Do not have. Do not have, yes.
So that's their method of using it,
Right.
and it's inexpensive, and they can do it.
They skipped a generation of technology. They went from nothing to smartphones.
Like a lot of the Caribbean islands, they don't have wired telephones anymore. The last time the hurricane came through and blew them down, they said, why do we keep rebuilding this? It doesn't work. And they put in cell towers. And the cell tower can be back up and running in about an hour after the hurricane goes by.
You know that business. Okay, I'm going to skip through this quickly. This is just to show you two sample stereotypical target Latinos that the National Church says that we should be considering for evangelization. You have Sonia the Dreamer and Ashley Lopez, second generation. Ashley is bicultural, bilingual, acculturated. Sonia is foreign born. She's first generation. She's an aspiring American and is fast acclimating to the culture and to the society. And this is what Sonia looks like. And this is what Ashley looks like. Very similar, these two young ladies, there's lots of similarity between Sonia and Ashley, although she is the rung above culturally and more adept at the Anglo lifestyle, whereas Sonia is coming up. Okay. Well, we've gone through that already. Okay, this is from the NPR survey. I don't know if you all heard this. About a month or so back. It says where Mexican Americans are 3 times more likely to feel American and to blend in. Okay, again, because of, I'm sorry, than the other nationality Hispanics.
Oh, I see.
Okay, compared to the other Caribbean type Hispanics, the South American Hispanics, and so forth. They're the ones who feel more acculturated and even assimilated. You've got in the Mexican American community tiers. You've got the barrio Chicano Mexican-American, who is still very Mexican, so they think. But they're U.S. Mexicans, okay? But they're in the barrio, okay? And then you've got the tier 2, which is the Mexican-American who is bilingual, bicultural, and can move either way, English or Spanish, up and down, okay? But they still are very strong Mexican base in their perspective. And then you've got a third tier, which is the kind of the third generation, the ones that Mexicans would call agringados, okay, that speak hardly any Spanish, and that their name might be Brad Gonzalez, okay, or something of that sort, okay, compared to the Chicano Mexicano, which is Jose Gonzalez. Okay, now the third generation is Brad Gonzalez. And then you've got a third tier. This is a tier that is completely assimilated. In fact, they are fleeing, they have fled the culture. Ese renglón de México-americanos que están arriba, bien aculturados, asimilados, que niegan la cultura, que niegan que son mexicanos, okay, que huyen la cultura. Okay, and so in the Mexican-American community, you've got this different layers. And so if an Anglo congregation says, you know what, we're going to reach out and do Hispanic, Latino ministry with Mexican-Americans, well, you've got to know which Mexican-Americans you're dealing with. Okay, tier 1 or tier 2 or 3 or 4. Okay, and then you've got some Mexicans, wealthy Mexicans in the community who are living in palatial homes. They're a breed apart. Okay, normally those are not part of our market. Okay, in terms of evangelization, we're taking a look at the second, third, fourth generation and the first generation. This is an interesting, and this is a very, very necessary statement. The more generation in the picture, the more comfortable they are in embracing an Episcopal or non-denominational experience. Meaning the umbilical cord to the Roman Church is weakened sufficiently enough that they can consider, or will consider, non-Roman Catholic worship possibilities. Okay. So if you want to, all of a sudden your vestry says, you know, we got to have a Mexican in our vestry. Okay, how do we do it? Well, which Mexican-American generation would you select would be the most likely to fit into your vestry? The second generation or third generation? Okay.
Second might be the most helpful in some ways.
If you've got a second would be helpful, and this is what happened in my church that I retired from. We have a Mexican-American on the vestry, and she is now a bridge between our Spanish language congregation and the Anglo congregation. They are bridge people because they can go either way. Okay. Gracias. All right. I ask you, what's the takeaway of this presentation? I think the bottom line of what we saw is that the Latino Hispanic population in reality is very diverse, very complex. There's not a stereotypical group that you can assume. So now if I ask you, what would Hispanic Latino ministry look like, you might have a different way of thinking. That you don't automatically assume that it's going to be Spanish speaking. You don't automatically assume that it's going to be to somebody who is in a lower socioeconomic level, or who doesn't speak English, or who is not on your level, eyeball to eyeball, nose to nose, your peer. Okay? And this is if there's anything that we learned today, and that is that that Mexican, or not Mexican, but Latino Hispanic ministry has to be viewed like xeriscape landscaping. You know what xeriscape landscaping is like? I can hardly spell it, so.
Yeah, X-E-R-I.
Like this?
Yeah, X-E-R-I.
X
E-R-I.
E-R-I,
No O.
no O, scape. Xeriscape, landscaping, you've got to determine what soil you've got. What's the nutrient ratio of your soil? Is it acidy? Is it sandy? Is it clay? How much sun do you get during the day? What are the climatic conditions? Okay, and what are native to your area? Hello, Bishop. And so my point is that Latino Hispanic ministry is like xeriscape landscaping. You got to determine what is the soil you're dealing with, okay? And what are the climatic, what are the settings, what are the different nationalities, the cultural levels, and so forth that you're dealing with. That's very important because not one size fits all. Okay, let me move away from this one here. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm becoming a Mac person, so I'm having to be ambidextrous here. The current Latino Hispanic iceberg. By the way, this is the USS Episcopal. Okay, it's attempting to navigate the waters of Latino Hispanic ministry. And what does it see in this iceberg? The tip of the iceberg, right? And so therefore, that's where it's going to gravitate to. Because they say, aha, we have found land. Okay, so they're gravitating to this tip of the iceberg because this is what's visible. This is what they can see. It's palpable, it's touchable, and it's right in front of you. This represents, as we saw, 1/3 of the Latino Hispanic population, the tip of the iceberg. But then you've got this submerged level, the 2/3 of the multi-generational Latinos, second, third, fourth generation. Okay, that are not, in many cases, they're invisible. And I have to ask you, why are they invisible? You've got perhaps a Mexican-American friend that is a co-worker who is in some form of a business trade relationship, who might be your dentist, who might be your plumber, who might be your neighbor, who might be your son-in-law or sister-in-law or whatever. You've got many of these second multi-generation Latinos are invisible because they kind of blend in. They don't stick out. The ones that stick out are the ones that are very visible. They're the ones who need help. They're the ones that, los pobrecitos, okay, because they're the ones that we can feel some compassion for, and we say, we got to help these folks. But why attempt to evangelize a multi-generation Latino? By the way, I'm going to be using this term quite extensively. Multi-generation Latino, meaning those that are second, third, and fourth generation on up. Okay? How many of you Hispanic Latinos that are here are MGLs? Okay, you got some MGLs here represented. But MGLs are not normally part of the Episcopal Latino Hispanic ministry. Why? Many reasons. Number one
is that they're contemporaries in the Anglo world.
Right.
They go to church.
Right.
a non-church society.
a non-church society. Many of the MGLs are losing their church patterns of attendance or their affinity to church. Okay, in effect, what we've got is you've got secularized MGLs that are there for the evangelization picking. Okay, they are in effect the type of secular community that is exactly what should be our missionary field. I'd like for you to wrap yourselves around this term here, transgeneration. This is the title that I put to this new paradigm of Latino Hispanic ministry. It is a transgeneration ministry, meaning that it covers the first generation fresh off the boat, Latino Hispanic, to the acculturated, assimilated. Okay, it is a spectrum of the Latinos. Okay. Transgeneración significa que estamos poniendo atención no solamente a lo de arriba, que son los inmigrantes y la primera generación, pero totalmente esta segunda, tercera, cuarta generación que totalmente comprenden el total de lo que son los hispanos. Yes, sir.
Do you find that by having the second and third tier incorporated, it helps bring in the first tier? Or helps with that assimilation?
If it's second generation, there's more likely that would happen. Yeah, but it doesn't happen the other way around. Okay, now you have Hispanic congregations here in the Diocese of San Diego. Most of them are not standalone missions or parishes. They are connected in some form or fashion to an Anglo congregation. Is that correct? No? No? Do you have some standalone?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Then I was mistaken in my interpretation. So you do have some standalone missions? You have no parishes?
Yes, we do have that.
A Hispanic parish?
Yes.
Really?
Well, the majority is Hispanic, and the other minority.
Oh, but it's the financial base though is Anglo.
No.
No?
The financial base is,
Well, congratulations to you. This is good to hear. Which is the church? St. Philip's.
And Santa Rosa.
In Lemongrove.
All right. Well, then you are a little bit different than in some places. In Texas, for example, we have one Hispanic parish, okay, that is largely first-generation immigrant. Okay, the rest are tied to an Anglo congregation or some Anglo institution. Okay, they get their financial help from the diocese or from that institution itself. Okay, and so what we have in the transgeneration in these Spanish-speaking communities, now St. Philip's might be different. You might have a sufficient number of MGLs that are kind of bridge. Is that true in your
Not
congregation?
in St. Thomas, it's.
Oh, St. Thomas.
It's all I know. And me.
Okay, you're the only one.
There's two of us.
There's two of you. Miguel.
We have young, pretty much the youth group is the one that had second and third generation.
Okay.
Our youth group, which is working hard on the parish,
Uh-huh.
is the second, third.
Second, third generation. Okay. I've just been handed a note that we're going to take a stretch.